Hello, you are listening to Called to Homeschool, episode number 303. How do I? An episode dedicated to all the frequently asked homeschool questions. Friends, how in the world are you doing? I am so good because tomorrow my daughter is coming home from her mission. She has been serving a mission for our church for the last 18 months in the Houston East area. And she's been speaking Spanish and has just loved the whole entire experience. And with in our church with missionaries, you can only talk to them once a week. And I guess technically you could probably go see them, but we didn't. But it's not something that you regularly do, right? Like they don't take a vacation. They just are missionary for that dedicated time. So I've only been able to talk to her once a week for 18 months, and I cannot wait to have her home and love on her. And it is going to be amazing. She and I are going to be leaving on a trip in a couple weeks where it's just the two of us together for, I think our trip is 9 days. So I'm super excited about that. So make sure you check my Instagram stories to see my beautiful Bella. That is redundant, I know, but she will be home tomorrow. So I cannot wait. Then I'll only have one kid out on a mission instead of two. And I've been joking, two kids on a mission feels like a part-time job. It's been intense as far as like talking to both of them on the same day. It's been a joke that it's been my job on Mondays. Okay. Well, earlier, I guess it's just a few weeks ago in February, my husband and I snuck away for a little getaway. It was amazing. If you can do that every now and then, I encourage you. We actually said, let's, like, instead of trying to do every quarter, let's at least try to go twice a year where we just sneak away, where it's just us. Nothing for us, it wasn't anything big and lavish. It was in Moab, Utah. If you're familiar with that, it's awesome. And if you're not familiar with that, go there. It's awesome. Right. So we were down there having an amazing time. And we would hike during the day. One day I took a 3 hour nap in the afternoon and we laughed way hard. Like, apparently you were tired. But then at night times we'd hang out in the hot tub, right? And so it's super fun, dreamy, just nice and easy and slow. I laugh because I'm like, oh, what a lazy trip because I would take a nap. And he goes, we would hike a ton of miles every morning, right? I was like, well, I don't know. So that's my version of a lazy vacation, right? Is to not go all day long. But anyway, so we were there, and on one night we were in the hot tub, and this cutest family was there, and it was the parents and I think five kids, and it was a Thursday night. So I'm like, they have to be homeschooled, right? Like everybody else would be in school. So of course I ask, right? Like, hey, do you guys happen to homeschool? And they're like, actually, we do. This is our first year. So, of course, I'm like, oh my goodness. We've been homeschooling for a million years. We have seven kids, and we just had this lovely, amazing time talking about homeschool because I love talking about homeschool. And then a couple days later, it was our last day. And we decided we'd go hot tub in the morning and then check out and then go hiking that afternoon. And another cute family out there. And I believe they had four kids and they were just so amazing. And it was just this energy about them that they were they felt like such an intentional family. And so I go, are you guys homeschooled? And she's like, no, but it's something I've thought of before. And I was like, whoa, well, good thing you're in the right place because I've been homeschooling for a really long time, right? So anyway, I ended up chatting with both of these families for quite a while about homeschooling, and they were asking so many great questions from just people in the beginning stage, or I've had clients lately who have kids now in the high school stage, and so I just thought let's just do this amazing episode of the how do I, right? But like the frequently asked questions, I've been getting a lot about homeschooling. So I'm just going to go through a bunch of these questions. These are from obviously these amazing ladies I met. These are from people in my membership. These are questions I get regularly on Instagram. So these are a lot of the questions that I see. And I always thought it'd be great to have it in a one stop shop for you to come. So, legal requirements. Is homeschooling legal in my state? So, I have loved it's, oh goodness, hslda.org, I believe, Homeschool Legal Defense Association or something. They have a really great page about the legality of pulling your kids out of school. And it is the page that I utilize often. I know they have a membership. I've never paid for their membership. I don't know what else is in their membership, to be honest, but they have really great stuff of what to do in your state. So in Utah, they said you just have to have a signed document that has to be notarized that says, I am going to be taking care of homeschooling my children. telling you whether or not your state requires testing, telling you what your state requires of you and what doesn't. I have found more than one time that do not go and ask the school or the school district because you will usually get wrong information because obviously they're very pro government schools. So when I first was taking my kids out of school, I asked them and they had me sign, like they wanted me to sign this document that was basically I will do whatever they tell me to do. Just stuff that I thought I'm not comfortable with any of this. So I was so grateful when I found this that legally what you have to do versus what you get told you have to do are sometimes very different. So that's why I recommend going for them to see what your state requires. And it's just a really great, easy source. So I know in Utah, you literally create a paper like I'm going to be homeschooling my kids. I think you say their names or something, and you get it notarized, which you can do for free at your banks. So super easy in Utah. Um, but do you need a teaching degree or certification? And absolutely not. As far as I know, no states in the US require that. And it's so interesting because I've seen some really great Instagram posts about this of like being able to teach your children without a degree is like um grandma's cooking. She didn't need a degree. She just had so many years of experience. She was just magical and amazing with it, right? So just a lot of times you are learning right then and there with your kids. With all like especially in the beginning when I would just always laugh. However, my oldest kid was, I'd be like, I'm in the third grade math level. And then he got older, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm at an 8th grade math level now." And now, my 13-year-old, he's doing fractions right now, and I was like, "Oh, I'm really good at fractions now because I've had to do them so many times. It's my 6th time teaching this grade and this subject, right? So you don't need a teaching degree or a certificate. And it's interesting if you remember Karen, who was on the podcast with me before, my friend and old co-host, she actually has a teaching degree. And it's been interesting because a lot of times with teaching degrees and certificates, it is class management, how to manage a class and discipline and different things like that. And it's not necessarily like here's an in-depth dive of World War II history and how it all came about and how it affected economies and different things like that, right? It's not. And so you can just learn right then and there with your kids. And that to me is one of my favorite things about homeschooling because I'm as equally excited about stuff as they are. And it's so fun because it has teaching my kids opened up a love of learning that I didn't even know existed. I've talked before that I barely passed high school, did not love learning, got kicked out of class on the regular, and I wasn't going to graduate. And so I went into the counseling office, like, what do I have to do to graduate? And then went into the individual teachers, like, what do I have to do? Then I graduated and I thought, great, I never have to use any of this stuff ever again. Like, peace out to now. So my daughter and I on our trip, we are headed to Europe. And I went on a deep dive of studying other countries and looking up their folk legends and tales from these countries. And then it was so fascinating because I was reading this one book about their empress and their emperor, and then it like funneled right into World War One history that I had no idea, and how all these people were connected and they were all cousins. And I've been to some of these places when I took my other daughter to Europe, right? And so it was like for me, it was so exciting that this love of learning, and it was so fun because then my kids, so we've been learning about Hungary with George, and teaching him about some of the cultures there and some of the customs in Hungary and some of these amazing things, and just watching him love that. But then watching my kids like, I love that you know so much about this, and like something I love, I can know how to go research it and find out, right? So you don't need a teaching degree or certificate. Like we have the computer, we have Alexas, we have Google Homes, we have all of these things where we can literally just ask it. When I am doing math with my son, I actually keep my phone by me now, which I didn't do for years, but because he asks so many great questions that I like to be able to Google something, or actually, I've really liked ChatGPT. And because he wants to know why or how things came about, or especially with math. And so I don't need a degree for that. I can literally look that up. And if I don't know an answer or I can't find it by Googling it, I know people who know that answer, right? And so, no, you don't need a teaching degree or certificate. And if your kid is already enrolled in a school, I do love suggesting doing a breakup basket. That's my favorite thing to do when I break up with somebody or an institution or something. When I broke up with my orthodontist and we switched orthodontists, I went in with a big old basket. I went to a bakery and got a big, beautiful basket. We wrote a card. Thank you, because there's no reason you have to leave on mean terms, right? Like, there's no reason that you have to be hate on them and like I hope your school burns down, right? Like, no, you don't need any of that stuff. But it's like a lot of times you have really amazing teachers who are truly out there doing their darndest in a very broken system, right? So if you had an administrative person that you really enjoyed or a teacher you really liked, like go give them a breakup basket of thank you so much for loving on my baby. Thank you so much for all of this service, right? So I really love doing the breakup basket if when you are pulling out of school, especially if it um, you really enjoyed some of the people there. Okay, so now let's switch over to curriculum. And the $1 million question, what curriculum should I use? What is the best curriculum? Oh, good laws, right? That's like asking, what is the best meal in the whole entire world that would feed everybody and everybody would enjoy it and like it? It doesn't exist, right? Because even if I said something like just bread, then you'd have all these people like, well, I don't like bread, or bread hurts my tummy. I think bread is boring without something on it. So it is darn near impossible to say, like, this is the perfect curriculum. This is the best curriculum. I created 30 Days to Ease into Homeschooling. And part of that was to kind of see what you do like, right? Like, what do you want your schedule to look like? And so before you even go and pick a curriculum, start thinking, what do we want our school day to look like? What do we want the flow of it to be? Do we want to hire out some of our subjects? Do we want to have co-ops? Do we want to have all these things? And when you start looking at that, like, okay, a co-op may be our science. My son and daughter do speech and debate and mock trial, right? So they're getting a lot of awesome stuff with that. George is all the way homeschooled with me. He has his co-op, but it's just a play co-op, right? For him. And so you kind of can see like, what are these things we want to do? I do create lesson plans, right? It talked about that they're back. And so to help people kind of get an idea. And it's a very Charlotte Mason well educated heart style where it's life skills and habits, and then the arts, science, and history. So those are there. But ultimately, the only way to find out whether or not you like a curriculum is to try it, right? And so as you try different curriculums, then you can find out which one is the best for you. And I have some curriculums and lesson plans that I have used for all of my kids. And then I have some new ones that I just am doing with my 13-year-old right now that I thought, oh, this is pretty awesome. It probably would have been great for my big kids, but too late, right? I do love teaching with a lot of games. Kids are really receptive to games. And it's funny to me because people get so hung up on curriculum when the important part is really building the relationship and building this connection so your children are receptive and open to your teaching and willing to listen to you. So, like, people are like, oh, I have to have the best math book. And I was like, actually, no, build a relationship with your kid and help your kid to tie their own shoes and make their own bed and cook for themselves and clean for themselves. And like math will just become a natural progression. And so, I've seen a lot of things that say actually wait to start homeschooling till 7. And that's a little late for me personally. But I know I went a lot slower with George, and it was crazy to me how much quicker he picked things up because he was ready. So, exposed him to a lot of letters and games and numbers and a lot of playing, but he didn't really want to read. And then this year, he just has exploded with reading, and his math has just exploded. And I thought, oh, how interesting by just going slow. He's 7, almost 8, that he really took off. So I kind of love that idea of just really connect, be a family, learn how to be together before you get all hung up on which curriculum you should use. Then, obviously, if you want suggestions, I have a free homeschool guide on my website, coachmcthomas.com, on Instagram, my link tree, Coach McThomas, that has some of my favorite suggestions. But really deciding, like, what do we want our family to look like? And that is such a better question to ask than which curriculum should I use? Do we want to be a traveling family, right? I had Ariane on the podcast a few weeks ago, and they world schooled for a year, which sounds so dreamy to me, but somebody else might be like, oh, I hate traveling. That scares me to death. I would never do that. Like, okay, great. Then don't do that. What do you love? There's a little private school here that some of our homeschool friends have been utilizing because it's just 3 days a week. And it's a really rich Latin and Greek and just like the arts education. Fantastic. Do what's important to you and like make that your school before you get hung up on like, oh, should I do the good and the beautiful or not do the good and the beautiful? Should I use Saxon? Should I not use Saxon? Right? Before you get hung up on all those details, figure out how to be together as a family first, having kids doing chores, helping out around the house, and how to build that relationship with them so that they will be open and receptive to you when you are teaching. And you don't have to just use a curriculum out of a box. You can create whatever it is you want to create, right? Um, like I was saying, I love, oh, sorry, I always have a runny nose and this winter has been killing me. Um, this I love like whenever we're going to go somewhere and learn different things of just creating my own, right? And if that doesn't speak to you, there are a lot of things already out there and done, but you're not going to know what you like and don't like until you try a bunch of things. And school's not going to be great if you can't work together as a family. So, those are some questions. Now, to go along with this, and people get worried about what subjects to teach and at what grade level. So, what is taught in schools is made up, right? Like we can probably all agree that people should know how to read, write, and do basic math, right? Those are probably things that we can all agree on. But then there's so many different things that we're like, this is important. No, this is important. No, they should know this. No, they should know that. There's so many different things that you have to decide what subjects are important to you. You cannot teach your children everything. And then some things that like you learned in school, you're like, that was a waste of my time because I didn't even care. And it was interesting. Just the other day, my daughter was talking about science and she's like, science. And she goes, actually, I like learning about scientists. I like learning about their life and the things that they are doing, but I don't want to know complicated math and I don't want to even really do experiments, but I love learning about the people. And then my boys, for them, they're like, we don't really care about that. We want to do experiments. We want to build stuff. We want to do something really creative. So, like, what subject to teach? What is important to you? What do you want your kids to know? If you are way into weather, great, teach them about weather. And if not, don't. Like I said, we have so many things available to us with phones and Google Homes and Alexas and all of these things that we can Google stuff. So if your kid's like, what are these different types of clouds? I don't have to know this off the top of my head. I can Google it on my phone, right? Of just like, hey, what are the different types of clouds? What is the what weather cycle, right? So to me, it's not so much about what subjects I'm teaching, it's about getting them excited about learning. And I loved this the other day. I can't remember where George and I were. Maybe we were just driving and he was asking me the best questions about. He loves history. And so just about different things in history and what do I think about this and what do I think about that and do you think this is a good idea, not a good idea? And to me he's just getting this interest peaked of learning and loving to learn. And I would much rather foster that than saying like, well, somebody in some office that's never met me or my children said that I have to teach my kids about root word. I said that word root words of Greek and Latin. And if I don't do that, I failed, right? But instead, no, I teach that because my husband loves languages. He loves showing the kids how it all is interconnected with all these different languages. So I choose to do that because it's fun to me. But we don't ever do dinosaurs because I feel like there's too much guessing in there. And so we just don't even worry about that. So, what subject you want to teach is up to you. And then grade level, once again, ridiculous because we don't do this to adults. And I hate that we do it to children because I'm 44 and I just learned about who Franz Ferdinand was, who was the man who was assassinated in World War One, and what his lineage was, and how he was even up for the emperor, the role of emperor, and how this all went down, and how World War One went down, and the person who actually declared war on Serbia, and why all these countries got involved. I learned that last month and I'm 44 years old. And I knew the basics of that, but I didn't know the in depth detail of any of those things. And there was nobody saying, like, oh, Meg, you were supposed to learn that at 30. Oh, this is awkward. This is so embarrassing. Right. But here we do it to children. So grade level is such nonsense of just like what grade level is just where you are. Right. And so I like books that don't say grade levels that are just like ABC or 1, 2, 3 and that aren't like for third graders because then my kid can just be on their level. And I love that. So some of my kids are get really far ahead with math because they love it. Some of my kids are like, I hate math. And we go really slow and just really get those foundations so that they know really their basic math really well. So there is no grade level in homeschool. Let it go. And if that's the next question, usually people say with that, but like, what if I need to put them in back in school? Okay, they'll figure it out. Might be a rocky month or two because they haven't been on the school schedule or learning what the school kids are learning, but they'll figure it out. Kids are super resilient and amazing. And this is a great question with that too, of homeschooling multiple children at different ages. And this is a great question. And this was one that I had when I was going to homeschool because I had five little kids. And somebody told me, Meg, you can't homeschool five little kids. You could homeschool if you had one kid, but you can't homeschool five kids. Right. And that was one of the comments that scared me. And like, okay, you're right. I can't. And now it's funny because I'm like, actually, I found it much easier to homeschool multiple kids. It was, well, I guess not even easier, but like it was really fun to me because I love to party. But multiple children at different ages, you just homeschool, like you just teach at a level. And so if we are learning about a composer, and an older kid, I would just actually teach it to the oldest kid, and a younger kid maybe float in and float out. And I'm not having them write a big paper on it. Maybe we're listening to the music and maybe we're creating something fun with it, or we're writing about it or drawing a picture, and they can all do that at their own level. And I can read a book. And if a kid does not have the attention span yet to sit through a book, let them float in and out because they're hearing bits and pieces of it, of like, oh, interesting. I didn't know that with Beethoven. Okay, now I'm going to leave again. Oh, I heard you guys playing this music. What is this song? The Fifth Symphony, right? Of like, this is a cool beat, and I've heard this before. And so then maybe they are in there for a little bit and then they float back out, right? And so like I just would teach to the oldest kid and let kids float in and out that were younger. So you can totally do it. There's lots of different things you can do with multiple ages. But I did all of our group subjects together. And George is the only one that's ever getting taught individually. And it's just different, but it was really awesome to see how much progression my younger kids would make when they were getting taught with the older kids, right? And how much they were retaining and learning because they were right there with big brother and sisters. Okay, so now let's go on to my favorite, not really favorite, my least favorite question that like I totally get on my soapbox about socialization. Will my child be socially isolated? I don't know. Are you weird? Like, do you lock your kid up in the basement? Then yes. Your children, like public school, government schools, do not teach social skills. And it is so funny because what I would get out of class, kicked out of class regularly was for talking, right? So like, come here, sit down, shut up, don't talk to the other kids. So the only time you're really getting the opportunity to be social and interacting with kids is recess, lunch, and maybe when you're walking to other classes. But sometimes you weren't even allowed to talk in the hallways, right? But it's such a fake environment in the fact that you are only with kids your own age. And I have girlfriends that are much older than me and much younger than me, right? And so it is not a true social situation. So worrying about your child being socially isolated, then get out of the house. Go to a park, go to a play group, go to do different things and find other friends. Now, when I had all my kids at home, right, to me, that was like, great, just play with your sibling and we can learn all these skills. And now just having one kid, we do get out a little bit more and making sure that he has opportunities to play with other kids. But he's also okay to learn to play by himself sometimes too. And then we play a lot of games together as well. So with anything with like this weird social isolation thing, it's so crazy to me because our homeschool day is so much shorter that then we actually have time to get out and play and to do different things. Where sometimes the neighbors, they're in school all day, and then as they get older, they have homework at night, and then if they're in extracurricular activity, they actually can't really be social. Their day is so organized and so structured, right? So with social skills, if you're socially awkward, chances are your kid might be socially awkward as well. I'm a little high energy and silly, and guess what? Some of my kids are a little silly too socially. Whatever that looks like, a lot of times what mom and dad are is what rubs off. So if you are really worried about your kid with social skills, get really good social skills yourself. Have people over, do play dates and co-ops, extracurricular activities, whatever floats your boat. But helping your child make friends is for children, it happens so naturally. Oh, you're a girl? I'm a girl. Fantastic. Let's go play tag. Right? It is not really hard for little kids to make friends. And so if you have a kid that is maybe needs to work on some skills, fantastic. Then teach that. Have that be part of your school. But if you make it like a weird thing, an awkward thing, then they're going to be weird and awkward about it too. And I have all different types of kids with different personalities, and some of them it's more natural and some of them need a little bit of help. But you're right there teaching them appropriate social skills, what's okay, what's not okay. One of my kids, I remember a friend was there And the friend had to go home. And one of my kids said, well, I'm not going to be your friend if you leave. And I was like, oh, let's nip that in the bud right now. Right. Like after the friend had left, like, hey, let's talk about manipulation. Let's talk about how to be a good friend. Right. So actually teaching them how to be a good friend so that they can make friends. Let's see. Local homeschool groups or co-ops you can join. I know in Utah there's like a million, and some wonderful woman has actually made a website where it just says the homeschool co-ops in Utah. And so I'm guessing if in other states you can look on Facebook, you can Google it and ask around and start finding them. But and if it doesn't exist, then friends create one, and you probably have other people who want to join. So you can find and create whatever it is you really want to create. And maybe you live in a really rural area, so you might need to drive a little bit further, right? You might just need to put in a little bit of a different effort as somebody who has a lot of choices where the effort I have to put in is being really intentional with which one I pick, what works best for me. Let's see. Okay, can my child still participate in extracurricular activities? Yes. So, especially if there's city stuff, sports, music, theater, anything that's a private institution, totally can. Now, as far as participating at the local government schools, that you would have to check your state laws. So, in Utah, you are legally allowed to participate with the government schools in their programs. And one of my kids did jazz band at the junior high and then at the high school. And that's been my only kid to do something at this local government school. None of my other kids have. My one son is thinking about doing tackle football, and that will actually be through the government schools. And I'll let you know how it goes. So it could be that they're like, no, we don't like homeschoolers. That's weird. But with my son with jazz band, they couldn't have cared less. They actually didn't even know he was homeschooled. And so that one you just have to find out and look up your state laws. And sometimes you might have to go to bat for your kids. Cause I know there was one cute girl that she actually helped me years ago. I can't even remember her name when I had George and I'd started working. And so she'd come over while I was working and then she had to quit because she said she had made a softball team and her coach said like you can't be homeschooled and be on my softball team, like you have to be at the school. And as a mother I would have thought that, but maybe she just wanted to go to school, I don't know. But you can totally find a lot of things privately. uh Tackle football is the one thing that I haven't been able to find privately, but even like baseball, there's usually club teams, soccer, there are club teams, volleyball, there are club teams. So a lot of times you can find a lot of things outside of this school, but the only thing I haven't been able to find is tackle football. So, which is why we're trying to figure out that, navigating that for this next year. Okay, so this was a question I get often. How many hours per day should we homeschool? Well, great question, because your life is homeschool, right? And so I like to think of it as how much time is actually structured learning. Now, if you have all little kids and you are trying to teach them, that could be a little bit more time. But a lot of times with kids under 8, 10, their school structured learning doesn't need to be more than 30 minutes. Now, with George, I do spend about 15 to 30 minutes a day with him, but it's one on one. But when I had more kids, I actually would lump people together for certain subjects. Like, hey, you're just both on the same level for math now. We're going to use the same math book. Okay, we're going to do language arts together. So George's is much more individualized because it's one kid. And then his brother that's 13, obviously that's a pretty big space. So they are on completely different levels. But when I had a lot of little kids, I would lump more people together. And my first three kids, they're all just 1 year apart. And I actually would lump them all together until they could become an independent learner. So then when they could do math by themselves, I'd be like, great, now here's your appropriate math book for you, or whatever that looked like. When I had everybody home, our school did go like from morning until lunchtime, and probably like 3 hours, and that was with me navigating 6 and 7 kids, and then sometimes a little bit after. But I usually am done with most of my stuff by lunchtime. And then if I wanted maybe to do a fun activity, or a lot of times we went to and we would get different passes, so like a zoo pass, an aquarium pass, a museum pass, or just go up to the mountains. We could do that in the afternoons. And then as far as my own kids finishing, we just have set up systems that it just has to be done. It used to have a time limit, like 5 p.m. they decided, but usually it's like before an extracurricular activity, just have your schoolwork done. And now like it has become so such a lifestyle that it's just like get it done that day whenever. And I'm not really managing that because it is, like I said, it's just our family culture that we just do school. And so my 7-year-old obviously does all of it with me, but my daughter, she does everything independently. And then my 13-year-old, I check his work the next day, so it just needs to be done before we do minute with mom. Simple as that. And so now my school is maybe 1 to 2 hours, and that just all depends on if we want to break out a really fun activity or craft or watch something that goes with it. And then we can just play all afternoon, and it's super awesome. So school doesn't need to be as long as you think it does. There is a whole homeschool episode, excuse me, a whole podcast episode dedicated to that, where I actually go in and break it down why public school 7 to 8, like 6 to 8 hours a day, and why homeschool can be so much shorter. So if you want like a really in-depth one, go and check out that podcast episode. Um, what does a typical homeschool day look like? I feel like I've done a lot of podcast episodes about that. For me, it changes every year with ages of children, with how many kids I have, because now, like at one point I was adding children and now I'm losing children as they're growing up. So it changes every year. A typical day for us would be get up, work out. Sometimes we work out all together, sometimes not. Two of my kids go to seminary twice a week, early in the morning, well, mid morning, 7. And then one of them on Wednesday morning is gone early for speech and debate. So, like, those are always changing, but we try to do scriptures together with whoever is home that morning, eat breakfast together. We do school, eat lunch, and then do whatever we want in the afternoon. So it's a really just basic idea of what we do. My lesson plans have where I do a subject of the day, right? And then minute with mom. And so that's always been what I've done is a subject of the day 4 days a week. So that's kind of what the general idea of my homeschool day looks like. Okay, this is a great question. Can I homeschool if I work full time? Yes. Do you want to? Is my question. There was one of the moms I met likes to work 10 hours a week, and totally doable. And I even talked to her about like you could bring in a teacher, a tutor, or something like that, that they could teach some fun subjects, maybe a really fun science teacher, an art teacher, something like that, that it would be really great for your kids. It could even be a drop off co op situation so you could go work. Um, you can work full time. It just means that your homeschool needs to look very different. And so, are you working full time in the evening? So you do homeschool in the morning. Are you working full time in the day? That means you're doing homeschool at night. So it just is something else to figure out, because I know there are single moms that are homeschooling. And so you just have to be really intentional with your time. And even though I am a high energy person, I don't know that I would want to work full time and homeschool, because to me, homeschooling is already a part time job. And sometimes it feels like a whole full time job, especially when you add in running the house, the cooking, the cleaning, the grocery shopping. So you can, anything can be figured out. Just decide, is it worth it? So maybe we're going down to part time. Um, Something where maybe it feels more manageable, but you can play around with that. Um, let's see. Okay, this is great. Is homeschooling expensive? No, no, it's not. We have had our income all over the place as being entrepreneurs. And so there were years where like we were making a lot of money, and there were years that was really slim, and we always figured it out. We just, when it was, well, I guess it was not till my 13-year-old did I let anybody write in a math book, because I was like, oh no, this has to be saved for every single kid. But now it's going to be such a big space that I was like, go ahead, write in the math book. I'll just get a new one when George is that old. So they were dying. Like, I can't believe you're letting him write in a math book. Little books like I like Explode the Code and a writing book, they can last a long time, and they are what, $5 to $10 a piece, right? You can utilize the library. A lot of books, people will read them on YouTube. So you can do a lot of things. You can even print worksheets for free. You can utilize so many things that homeschooling is not very expensive. This is my first year using state funding, and it's been funny because one of them I actually receive funding, and I just have it sitting in an account, because I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this. It does, homeschool just doesn't cost a ton. If you're in a lot of extracurricular activities or really expensive stuff, then that would be really helpful. But that's not my favorite thing, to be driving my kids around all the time. So um, I haven't found it expensive, but you can make anything as expensive or as cheap as you want to. Let's see. So getting financial assistance. A lot of states are just becoming more pro homeschool and school choices. And so each state you would just need to figure it out. In Utah, we have charter schools. That's what my kids are technically enrolled in a charter school and then receive funding with that. Utah has the Utah Fits All Scholarship where you can get reimbursed up to $8,000 for the school year, which just blows my mind because I think I don't even know what I would spend $8,000 on if it can't cover travel. Like I have no idea what you would blow that money on. And so I know a lot of states, Arizona has some good ones. I think Texas just passed one, but I know there are quite a few states are getting more and more things like that because more and more kids are wanting home school choices. So just that would be just checking out your own state and see what they have there. And then this last set of questions is so great because this is what has been popping up in membership calls and in private coaching, but college, right? Like, what about college? What do I do for college? Will my child be able to go to college? First of all, if you have only young kids, please don't worry about this. Please just put a pin in it and like, okay, we'll worry about this when my kid is 13. Then I'll look at it. I don't even need to worry about it, but maybe we'll even look into it when my kid is older. If you have all little kids, please don't stress yourself out. Just wait. If your kids are starting to get older, um, work backwards. Is there a college they want to? Do they even want to go to college? Do they want to do a trade school, right? Like a esthetician, a welder, a mechanic, nail tech, right? Like there's so many trade schools. Do they want to do something like that? Do they want to do an entrepreneur route? Do they want certifications? It's interesting. My husband's career actually requires no degree. He went on and got his master's. So he has a linguistics degree, a bachelor's, a minor in Spanish, and then he went on and got an MBA. And his degree, his career, he's an entrepreneur, requires no degree. And he just needs certificates and licenses. And so there are so many things like realtors and mortgage brokers and financial guys that it just is different certificates and licenses, right? Um, that like not everybody needs to go to college and maybe it's not the best route for every kid. So those are some things to question as your kid gets a little bit older. um, Applying for college, then once again, if your kid is like, I really want to go to school, then it's literally looking at that college and saying, what does this college want? Okay, they want a killer ACT and an essay. They want a homeschool transcript, which means you just made an Excel spreadsheet and you said, this is what we were doing. Like, what do they want? And work backwards and then make that part of your homeschool. We have decided to just start college in high school. And for my kids, I was talking to a client about this the other day that because she was like, do they all the credits all always transfer? No, because colleges are weird like that, where they don't just like communications at one college doesn't transfer directly to communications to another college, which I could get on another soapbox about that. I'm like, why would I need to retake this class that I already passed? Or math classes, like why would you just not take this math class if you're especially if you're not getting a math degree? So my kids' college probably won't transfer directly if some of them decide to do certain colleges, but it gives them, it looks really good on resumes. And I like that it was competency based. They did it through Southern New Hampshire University, and it was competency based and it was self paced. So it was really great for homeschoolers. It taught them how to do hard things academically, right? And push themselves. And then when they wanted to move out and go apply for jobs or on a mission, that they had a great resume. And it's interesting because if they do want to go to college, they transfer as a junior, and no, not all the credits will maybe be taken, but to me, it really helped them prepare if they did want to do college, but also prepare them if they're like, nope, college isn't for me, but they still have an associate. So if they want to go get a job, they don't have to put high school information on there because once you have college stuff, you don't need to do high school stuff. And so that was just really great that they didn't even put like that they were high schooler on there. So if for their mission um, applications, they all just put they had their uh, associates. When one son was getting a job, it was so funny because he's really tall. My husband's super, super tall. So he's super tall and he just said, I'm in college. And so he got hired at 15 at a job. And then they found out how young he was. And they're like, wait a minute. Oh, because he could work days, right? So they're like, wait a minute. We had no idea you were so young. And he was like, I never lied. Like, I am in college, right? And so, like, I've just seen it been a total help to my children for resumes, for jobs. And then if they do decide to go to school, that they have some skills to do college stuff. But really, it's just looking at the colleges and seeing what the college wants. If they're like, oh, I want to go to Purdue. Oh, I want an Ivy League school. Like, what does this school want? Or around here, a lot of kids want to go to Brigham Young University or BYU. Like, what does that school want? Then look at that school and work backwards and make that part of your schooling. I hope this has been super helpful answering all the questions with homeschooling. If you ever have any more questions, we can do another episode about this where I just dive in more about all things homeschooling because obviously I love it and I could talk about it all the time. So, friends, make sure you go check my Instagram tomorrow and just see the pure joy on my face as I see my daughter again. And have an amazing week. And I will talk to you next time.